Here comes the drums. This is the Mark Peterson Show, and yes, I am your host, Mark Anthony Peterson. This is the show where I bring you news, views, and opinions from a blackish point of view. How do you like my new hip-hop drums? You may ask, why did I substitute them in? Because this is a prediction show, and we're getting ready to strike the clock on 2020 and put 2019 behind us. So in this episode 18, I'm going to give you the top 10 predictions for 2020 that will piss black people off. Number 10. Unfortunately, there are going to be more HBCUs that will close. And for those of you who don't know what that is, historically black colleges and universities. There are 107 of these historically black colleges and universities. And according to a report from the Los Angeles Times, 50 years ago, 90% of black post-secondary students attended historically black schools. In 1990, it was close to 17%. Today, only 9% of black post-secondary students attend historically black schools. And that's the biggest part of the problem hurting HBCUs. They no longer attract black people to the college. Since the founding of the 107 HBCUs, 18 of them have closed, and 5 are operating in name only because they don't have accreditation. And some of the biggest and best brands in the HBCU catalog are suffering from some severe financial debt. Morehouse College president announced earlier this year in 2019 that the college would temporarily kill retirement fund contribution and furlough the staff. There was nearly a walkout of the staff when this plan was proposed to be implemented. Morehouse needs about $3 million, some estimates say as much as $5 million, to dig itself out of a hole left by hundreds of students who have failed to pay tuition and fees. Now, I know that's a startling revelation, given that a black billionaire just paid off the class of 2018's full debt and tuition upon graduation. Well, that was just one class. There were many other classes and many other students that have not paid their debts. And so they've left Morehouse College, one of the biggest brands among the HBCUs, looking for ways to save money. And they may run out of opportunities in 2020. The Department of Education added Howard University to the federal heightened cash monitoring list. Being on this list means the school is in serious financial trouble. And to add misery to a bigger problem, being on this list means that they cannot award financial aid. They have to pay for people who have or need the aid up front and then seek reimbursement from the government. That means they really have them. If the government refuses to ever make a reimbursement, we could see Howard University coming to its knees. And with this current administration, you never know when a refusal to reimburse will come along. So in 2020, a lot more black people are going to be pissed off because some HBCUs are going to close. And probably among them will be Elizabeth City State University, Payne College, Morris Brown, and Cheney University. All of these colleges and universities are unaccredited, and when you're unaccredited, you are entering the doom loop. What's number 9? Retailers and restaurants are going to accelerate their trend towards dark services. No, I don't mean the dark side like Star Wars. I mean operating with minimal number of people and not opening the doors to the public. Basically running a warehouse for delivery services like Instacart. Why is that going to piss black people off? It's going to mean fewer jobs. Fewer jobs in many of the poor communities where these retailers have traditionally served and worked for the public. And as they go dark and only offer delivery, that means more profits for them and less jobs for those communities. What's number 8? Number 8 piggybacks off of number 9. Those retailers and restaurants are going to also embrace robots and automation. You're already seeing it. Walmart has a robot that cleans the aisles and one that's planned to be able to stock the aisles. McDonald's, even in my small hometown of Selma, Alabama, has 4 ordering kiosks, which means only one person has to be at the desk at any given time during the workday. That's down from 4 or 5. That's 4 or 5 jobs lost in a small community. Imagine what the impact is on a larger city. What's the number 7 prediction that's going to piss black people off in 2020? If nominated, Biden will not select Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, or Cory Booker as a running mate. Wow, that's a bold prediction. He's going to bypass all the black people and not put any of them on the ticket, even though Obama put his butt on his ticket and ran with him a second term. He's not going to do it. He's looking to carry states and move closer to the methodology that got Trump elected. And he's not going to offend those voters who don't want to have color on the ticket. He may select an Elizabeth Warren, but he's not going to take Abrams, Harris, or Booker. And that's going to piss black people off. What's the 6th prediction? Tech giants like Facebook, Twitter, and Google will continue to restrict offensive speech, and I predict that offensive speech will include acts of violence by the police on people of color. So if you have videos, if you have evidence against those individuals, they're going to push to have that removed from the platform. Why am I making that argument? Because you have other tech giants like Amazon that own Ring Doorbell that's making an alliance with police departments to distribute that product into the community while giving a little kickback to the police department. That means a stronger alliance amongst the tech giants and police departments and less ability for you to express your speech on their platforms. I also think these tech giants are going to partner with the government to use facial recognition to make sure that whatever you do post winds up in the hands of some 3-letter agency for the government making a list of all the people who show up at protest. I know, it's going to piss you off. What's number 5? More government agencies are going to silently target people of color. Right? You already have Homeland Security. We know what they're doing. And they already have a ton of cages and lots of kids they want to put in them. We know what HUD is doing, trying to push more people of color out of the homes that were designed to put the poor and the economically disenfranchised into. And of course, we already know about the USDA's new proposals that will disproportionately impact people of color when it comes to food stamps. So what kind of new hell can we expect in 2020? Well, possibly the IRS. I've heard hints and rumors that they are already targeting many businesses of color, particularly those in the service-oriented area that may not have the receipts to justify some of their line item expenses. You may also see the education department step up and target many of the private black schools. These would be elementary, middle, and high schools that are run across the country, as well as those universities that I mentioned earlier. Yes, a silent war. Remember, racism to your face hurts, but systemic racism, when it's baked into the economy, destroys your life. And that's what soldiers faced when they came back from World War II, when they tried to buy homes, and redlining prevented them from doing that, from getting those loans and buying those homes in the black community, which stripped the black community of billions, if not trillions of dollars of wealth. So that's what I expect to see more of in 2020. Prediction number 4. More people of color will be removed from the voting rolls using the cross-check program. Just this month, December, Georgia removed over 300,000 people from the voting rolls. They claimed that those were inactive accounts. That represents 4% of Georgia's electorate. Now, these people were labeled inactive, including hundreds of thousands of people who were purged because they didn't vote in certain elections. So they were able to pick elections that they deemed important, and if you didn't vote in it, you were purged from the voting roll. Now, Georgia, between 2012 and 2018, purged 1.4 million people. That's the largest purge of anyone in the state's history during all of its time of existence. So that tells you where the goal is to get those individuals that they deem a threat to what they're trying to hold on to off the voting rolls, and then make it difficult for you to get back on the voting rolls. And Georgia's not alone. Wisconsin removed 240,000 people from their voting rolls. That's 7% of their electorate. They opted to remove these people because they did not respond to a mailer that was sent out to them from election officials. Now, how many of you respond to every piece of mail you get? Do you know that lawyers, when they're doing these class action suits, send out mailer after mailer after mailer? The courts make them follow a calendar and a timeline so that they can build out the class when they're bringing that suit. I'd love to see the protocol that was used by these election officials to purge 240,000 people off their voting rolls. Now, why is that important? Because Donald Trump carried Wisconsin by only 22,000 votes. So if you remove 234,000, good chances are that this is disproportionately rated against Democrats and people of color, which in many cases is one and the same, right? Ohio had to get in on it. They released a list of 235,000 voters who are going to be purged. It turns out, according to a New York Times article, that 40,000 people shouldn't have even been on the list, including the head of the Ohio League of Women Voters. She didn't fit any of their criteria for purging, but her name was on the list. Smells like a rat to me, and that rat's going to get stinkier and bigger as we move into 2020 and get closer to the presidential election. Guys, I'm not joking about this. The current governor of Georgia ran against Stacey Abrams, and he oversaw the election. Yeah. His job was to manage the election and run for governor. Do you think he was going to run a fair race? No. What's the number 3 prediction that's going to piss off black people in 2020? This one's going to hurt. Biden, Uncle Joe Biden, could be elected president. And why does that piss you off? Or why will it piss me off? Because he presided over the 3 strikes laws that put many black men in jail back in the 90s. Yeah, that was under the Clintons. And he was right there singing the praises of the program. He also attacked Anita Hill during the Clarence Thomas hearings, siding with the Republicans in defacing and defaming her name. And guess what he says he wants to do now? He wants to work with Republicans and bring more civility back to politics. What I hear when he say that, it means that he's sending out a signal saying he's going to move his politics to the right, just like Clinton did when he got elected. And what happened when Clinton got elected? Workfare was implemented. which pushed a lot of people off the welfare rolls and reduced the numbers on food stamps. And we got the 3 strikes law. When we look back on that, our quote-unquote first black president, he didn't do black people many favors. What's the number 2 prediction for 2020 that could piss black people off? Yeah, Trump could get reelected. I just told you Biden could get elected. Well, Trump could get reelected. And if we see that, all of the predictions that I made in the number 6 prediction around agencies that are going to continue to silently and systematically implement racist policies, you're going to see a lot more of that. Right. Because he's hired people and given people jobs that have free reign to go out and terrorize people that they don't want in their communities. And you're seeing it happen with the agencies that I mentioned earlier. So you're going to continue to see more of that if Trump gets reelected. And what's the number 1 prediction that's going to piss black people off in 2020? There's likely to be a recession in 2020. And why would that piss off black people? We all know the saying, last hired, first fired. And if we see a dip in the economy, you're going to see that dip have a double impact in the black community. We've always run double the employment rate in the country, so a dip will be felt first by people of color. Good news is that this time around we got the sharing economy. So more people of color now can participate in the sharing economy if you happen to get kicked out of your full-time job. I'm not saying that's perfect, but that's a way to at least cushion the blow. To become your own boss and work these gig jobs and work them anywhere and anytime that fits into your schedule. Guys, these are my top 10 predictions for 2020 that are going to piss black people off. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And before the drums get here, I want to tell you a little bit about my partnership with Airbnb Open Homes, a program that enables community members to offer free temporary housing to people displaced by disasters. I don't have to tell you about all the disasters that we have faced this year. Fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, all of those have cost people their homes and their ability to maintain their livelihood. If you are able to offer free temporary housing for your neighbors that have been impacted by a disaster, sign up to be an Open Homes host by going to airbnb.com/M Peterson. That's airbnb.com/M as in Mary, PETERSON. You will only be contacted when there is a need. This will add a great tool to our community's disaster response toolbox. Thank you guys. And hey, if you like this podcast, you may also like some of my other podcasts. Gorillapreneur, The Art of Waging Small Business Warfare. For those of you who are thinking about launching a business, that may be the podcast for you. But I warn you, it's for entrepreneurs and business mavericks. If you're not a maverick, you don't have to go home, but I don't recommend you go up into that podcast. Or you can check out Gigging, Everything in the Sharing Economy. If you want to learn more about the gig companies that are driving the global sharing economy, check out that podcast. And for those of you who just aren't ready to put your toe into the startup or small business arena, Career Coaching X's and O's. Advice for those of you who want to claim that corner office. Check out any one of those three on any of your favorite podcast platforms. This has been The Mark Peterson Show, and I'm your host, Mark Anthony Peterson. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for listening to all of my podcasts. Peace.
Hey you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.